Great. So a very warm welcome to all of you and a very good afternoon. So I am here, Deepa Ojha, Deputy Manager Policy at Data Security Council of India, to introduce yourself to a very timely discussion for today's, scheduled at this time for next 45 minutes, where our esteemed panelists would be deliberating on some very crucial topic, that is time for OTP and passwordless authentication, regulatory urges and demand of security to find alternates to OTP and password. I believe this is a very crucial topic of today's era, because for every digital transaction that we are entering these days, I don't know how many level of passwords and OTP authentication we have to do. Second thing, with this OTP and authentication requirements, there is cybersecurity breaches that we are seeing every now and then, wherein scamsters have found the ways to how to navigate through these OTP-based authentication. So here I would request all of your minds and kind attention to the deliberations that is going to happen, and I would take this liberty to now introduce yourself to our panelists entitled for this session, who will be sharing their diverse perspective on the issues and how going forward with our digitization journey, India as a country can go leaps and bounds with regard to authentication, that is a must required step for digitization and digital enabled services in near future. So with warm welcome, with your applause, please welcome on stage Mr. Pawan Chawla, who is having more than 22 years of experience in companies of diverse sizes and diverse sector. And he is an industry evangelist currently associated with Tata AIA Life Insurance Company and is serving as CISO and Data Protection Officer for the insurance company. A very warm welcome to Pawan, And for your information, for today, he would be the moderator of the session and would give some direction to the discussions that we are going to have here. Next we have Ms. Divya K, who is working as a CISO at a leading public sector bank with an overall experience of more than 10 years in IT project management and cybersecurity governance. She expertises in BFSI sector and banking sector. Welcome, Divya. Next we have Ms. Neha Fatima, who is a technical consultant at Data Security Council of India and is an experienced personnel in governance, risk and compliance and security operations. At DSCI also, she shares her valuable expertise whenever it comes to cybersecurity, governance, risk and management. Welcome, Neha, on board. And last, we have Mr. Jeevan, who is the Global Head of Identity and Access Management at Barclays. He is a highly acclaimed identity access management professional with more than 20 years of experience. He has to his credit IM Transition of Barclays and many other like organizations. Welcome, Jeevan. I welcome you all for the discussions and really look forward to an engaging inputs and interaction from the audience as such. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Pawan.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you. Well, since 2018, 19, I would say, ever since December, the COVID has hit the country. The digitization has taken a next leap, and authentication has become a critical aspect of the digitization. Where recently I had an experience of it. I last traveled in 2018, and after that I traveled last week only out of country. And in last 4 or 5 years, the things have changed in India. Everything I used to is just carry my mobile phone. Now I had an habit of not even carrying my wallet during the weekends as well, because everything is there in the phone, even your credit cards, everything. And when I was out of country and I was in a country where the OTP is not even there, accepted at most of the places, and I was giving my card to swap, and they were like, "Sir, we don't accept card as well." There are certain places where they only accept cash. And then you realize that you're not in India, and things have not improved in other places where we see that in India the digitization has gone to the next leap. Now, most of the things, earlier it was only the password which has been the authentication factor from last 50 years. Since 2017-18, now OTP become another piece of it. which is solving most of our problem. Even today, when you log in onto your certain email clients and other things as well, either you accept an OTP or you get a call where you have to press some buttons and you get authenticated there if you have a dual factor authentication enabled in the system. If you don't, then you have to use the traditional method of using the username and the password. But things have become more complex for an end user when it comes to user experience and all, because we use multiple accounts and then we have to ensure that they remember the password as well. Earlier, password used to be the 4-character, 6-character. It became 8-character with complexity, and now even 8-character is not safe. We are bounding people to remember at least 12-character with complexity built in it, with numbers, capital characters, and some special characters embedded in it. So things have become more complex. Today in the panel discussion, we are going to talk about that only. And with my panelists, we are looking for a solution which can help us out in implementing in the organization and help us overcome certain challenges which the business and we as a consumers are facing in the organization, and would like to give a seamless experience to our customer as well. So with that, I would like to start with first question, Jeev, to you. What are the challenges do you think are there with passwordless and OTP authentication, apart from the account security, poor experience, and increased cost?
No, thanks, Pawan. Firstly, that is my 23-year-old photo, not now. So even deepfake can't make up for it, isn't it? Sorry, I was late in providing my photo. That's what it is. But the good thing about this question to me is that we are going through that journey of becoming passwordless organization. We have been actively investing within the firm. And look, what we are trying to do, passwordless or OTP-less authentication, is it a silver bullet? Not at this stage. It is an evolving technology where, like today, if you have how long or how complex a password can be, willingly or unwillingly, it's susceptible to the risk of attacks, cyber attacks. Having said that things, there are also challenges with password authentication as it's an evolving technology or emerging technology. But definitely with the right investment, it will get matured. But there are a couple of challenges. Like you have already taken away the cost element from me, but and the security part of it. But there are a couple of things in my experience over the last couple of months that as we are piloting this technology within my organization, first one is that it does not cater to all the scenarios. Okay, for example, your SWIFT network. Okay, it does not cater to that. Then your traders accessing the, when you have to meet the FIDO standards, which requires us to have your mobile, so that the system can automatically gauge and understand that it is you who's there. The traders are not allowed with their mobiles on the trading floor. So that is another challenge that it does not cater to. The second challenge is the storing of the biometrics data. There are company-specific requirements. In addition to that, then the additional rigor and the investment and the governance that you need to build around it to make sure that your devices and your data is properly encrypted. The third one is your data and your device loss. That could probably cause it. If it's not properly, you have another factor of authentication implemented on it. And most likely, and the most other important part is your user adoption, where people are still hesitant to provide their biometrics data. Just I was speaking to Neha before the call, and she's like, I'm never going to be able to provide my biometric data because I'm hesitant. And those are the real challenges that we face day in and day out. And look, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the few that we have encountered, and we are working through it. But these are a couple of ones. But I'm more than happy if others have, in their experience, faced any other challenges.
So before I move to Divya, you talked about biometric authentication and adaptability and people resistance in providing biometric information. But tell me, if certain things, like there will be a device which will be involved in doing a passwordless authentication. It could be a mobile phone, or it could be some third-party device which people may carry. And these information are already part of those devices, because today, if you look at it, most of the smart handphones, you don't put a thumb impression or something. It just do the face recognition and give you all the access. And even you can log into your banking applications as well. Isn't it making a life easier for a user, or you still see that as a challenge? Because today, if I look at it, to name some banks as well, they have, like ICICI, I use it every day. They have face recognition enabled. I have enabled face recognition in it. The moment I open that particular app, it automatically logs me in. But yes, for transaction, you need an OTP. So that's a second factor authentication. But the things talking about biometric, there is no consent, nothing. But once you install it, it gives you an option to enable it, and you have already enabled it. As an organization, if you ask your employee to access certain things, they have to provide this consent by default. I mean, since an organization tool, shouldn't it be taken as by default, or you still that is a challenge as an adaptability?
There's absolutely the challenge in that case. Like, because there are norms like GDPR, HIPAA, others which come in play, and by default you can't really enforce your users to adhere to follow the things. Even when people are using the face recognition for like you said, for ICICI Bank, it is your personal.
It could be personal, it could be salaried account. Most of the people may be having a salaried account at different banks. And face recognition is the common thing which is enabled on the phone.
But that is something that you are basically giving a consent that you can do it, isn't it? But it's not like by enforcement that the bank is telling you, or somebody in your office is telling you to know, you have to go and use the biometrics unless you can't get your salary, isn't it? That is where you have to make sure that how do you strike the balance. And that is where all these data security standards are written down, so that we don't probably force and enforce people to follow it, isn't it? But we can make people comfortable by showing them the guardrails which are put around it, making sure that there are proper inscriptions that are allowed, and making sure that the data is highly secured. If you're able to convince your colleagues and your staff that it is absolutely secure and it won't be misused, then there is no other way, But there's always going to be that small volume of staff which will always resist to change, and which is where you have to probably do a lot of user education and go through a phased adoption, where people are adopting it, you're getting the iterative feedback, and then it becomes seamless. But it is a journey in itself. It's not a rocket science. You can do a bulk upload, or sorry, a bulk rollout. It definitely needs to be a phased rollout with proper user buy-in, with proper user education training that you need to take them on the journey.
Okay. So you also talked about piloting this particular piece. So is it one solution, or there are multiple solutions to be implemented to achieve a passwordless authentication?
Today there are quite a few organizations who are coming up with this kind of solution. So we had to evaluate multiple different solutions before we zeroed on one. Look, I'm not allowed to speak about various solutions, but if you want to speak to me offline, I can give you the thing, because I don't want to endorse any particular solution. But we went and did a study of various different solutions, because it's not like what works for me may not necessarily work for another organization. So you have to evaluate in terms of your organization need, complexity, integration that is required. Basis that we zeroed down a solution, and after that we had to do a lot of bespoke requirement and development and requirements to meet that particular requirement and get that POC successful. So that is how you need to go through it. But a proper vendor evaluation is absolutely the right thing if you're looking to get your organization on this journey of passwordless authentication. But there are really some good solutions out there in the market, and especially I was quite intrigued. This new upcoming organizations which are small, they come up with some really good solutions, as against the ones which are the big names in the market. They're quite resistant, and then that creates a bit of a vendor lock-in, because you need to have solutions which which provide that interoperability, rather than you go through a solution and then it just one trick pony. That's definitely not going to help.
Okay. Divya, I have a similar question for you. What are the challenges do you think are there in the passwordless and the OTP-less authentication? Since you're representing a public sector bank, I foresee that it will be a bigger challenge for you to implement it in a public sector bank. There may be so apart from cost, the poor experience and the poor accountability, account security, what are the other things which you look at?
Firstly,
that will be there.
Yes, definitely. When I take you around 8 years back, when India announced demonetization, so before that everybody was depending on branch banking, or probably you would draw cash from the ATM and use it. So there was no cashless society like what we have seen today. So post demonetization, when that issue happened, we know that we are not able to get adequate cash either from the ATM or from the branch. So people shifted for more of
e-commerce transaction, POS transaction for purchasing. So soon after COVID pandemic, all of us again shifted for UPI. So as Bhavan said, when he's traveling to other countries, so we don't have the habit of carrying our wallet around. Now, Reserve Bank of India has come up with CBDC concept, which is based on a blockchain technology, and still making the users adapt to it is a big challenge. And a lot of rural masses, they still don't have smartphones, internet connectivity, and we are still yet to become 100% financially inclusive. So if I'm developing that, will I be able to reach all the masses, and how the acceptance rate will be there? Because literacy rate is also very important for them to use this kind of technologies. Next thing is inclusivity. How do we implement? Suppose I have a mobile banking app or an internet banking application where somebody has to do a transaction, but if the person is differently abled, so how do we enable these things for people who are especially challenged? So that inclusivity is also a big concern. And when we have implemented certain biometric systems inside banking for our own employees to log into certain core banking solutions or some of the critical systems, I used to get some requests, madam, I have applied Mehendi, so for 2 weeks I will not be able to authenticate core banking biometric, please bypass it for 2 weeks. And or somebody has undergone a surgery in the hand, or they have an injury, or due to age factors, the biometric machine is not able to actually detect because they have shivering or certain skin related issues also. So how to bypass? If I'm going to bypass, again I'll be compromising a little bit on security. And of course, a lot of hardware infrastructure, software infrastructure, everything is an investment. But even if I'm doing that kind of an investment, whether I'll be able to convince the customers to use it. And again, cybercrime awareness is also very important, because nowadays, I was just discussing before the panel also, Aadhaar-enabled payment systems are there. We have, India has got business correspondents. Wherever we don't have banking presence in rural areas or unbanked rural service centers, hilly areas where actually the physical branch is not present of any bank. So there are business correspondents who are actually tied up with the bank. They carry a good amount of money in their bag, and they go to every household in the village, where the villagers will be able to withdraw up to 4,000 using that POS machine by authenticating through their fingerprint. But recently there is one different type of fraud has happened. On the property documents, when you're purchasing a land or when you're selling a land, you are going to give your fingerprints for the land records. So that land records data got breached somehow, and the fingerprints of the users were taken from there, and it was matched to that Aadhaar-enabled payment system thing, and they were able to withdraw some money, because there is no way the user is concerned, user is fully aware, user has not clicked on any malicious link on the app or something, but still this kind of fraud has happened due to that kind of biometric issues. After that, UIDAI also came up with an option to lock your biometric. You can all, I must say that you must all visit your UIDAI website, log into your Aadhaar account, and you have to please lock your biometrics, unless and until there is a requirement for you to use your biometrics for some reason. Generally it is not required. Very exceptional cases, you can just unlock it, use it, and again you can lock it, so that nobody can misuse your biometric identification. So I see it from the convenience point of view, and the user acceptance point of view, and the cybercrime, ongoing cyber threats also, how to protect that part also, because it's all about money when we speak about any banking app. So making it more secure and error-free, not vulnerable, and convenience. So security and convenience usually, it's very difficult to balance. So
doesn't go hand in hand.
This doesn't go. So that's
security is always looked at as a roadblocker than a business enabler.
Yes, yes.
And that's where the challenge is. And you touched base upon a very important aspect of literacy. So educating people that how to use it, what to use it, and when to use it is very important. And that's a very critical piece which is there in every piece, every part of the organization. Neha, coming to you as a consultant, can the authentication mechanism ensure only the authorized user get access to the account?
Yes, definitely. Earlier, going back to the basics, we had authentication and authorization, two things. So authentication is basically verifying the identity while trying to access some resource. And authorization is mostly like verifying the authenticated identity. We started with, something that is PIN or a password, and then we gradually developed into something that you possess. But that has moved towards, I see, something that you inherit. What Jeevan just mentioned a few minutes back, something that we inherit. But there is a glitch in that because things are not static. In the age of artificial intelligence, where a deep fake is being leveraged by intensively by the attackers, so there are chances to defaulter the photographs, the authentication, the biometrics identity. So in that scenario, there is a concept called passive detection, wherein the solution detects the color, the size, and the color, the texture of your skin even. So and that will I think readily help ensure that authentication and authorization will be able to support. Yeah.
Okay, and now. In continuation to this, the last question, can the authentication mechanism also provide a seamless registration, authentication, and recovery? Because recovery is the most critical piece. Most of the people, since we are using multiple accounts, people don't remember the same password, right? Yeah. Once you put it, and these days it has become more easier. I still remember the days in 90s when we used to remember the phone numbers. It was much easier. The first 3 digits would be able to tell you that which provider it is, and then you can easily identify. Similarly, the landline was that in the similar line as well. You were able to easily correlate that which area the call has come from. These days it has become very difficult, and similarly it goes with the password as well. You either use the same password or use multiple password, and after you 1 or 2 password, you don't even remember any password. Even if you have stored it in the phone, if it authenticates good, but if it expired, you have to log in into multiple apps and then check it whether what password you have put in and whether you have to reset the password or not, and other things. So how does that work, Nayan?
So the journey, I think, has become quite easy. We have this, logging via selfie. Again, biometrics here. So I would say we are able to authenticate using just a selfie, and then we can set up our accounts using that. And then we have this, self-control, would say, kind of a thing that allows us to, revoke or grant our own identity and access. It not only ensures administration and IT desk help, but also possibility of road actors to gain access to the information that we carry. And this liveness detection helps ensure that data shared is not being played out. It's not being intercepted in between.
Okay.
And then there's a seamless, this single enrollment will ensure seamless registration, and the journey will thus become easy.
Okay, and again, it is very important to educate an individual as well, that how to take care of the accounts and how to ensure that the way to recover the password and put controls so that it should not get breached. Jeev, I'll ask you the same question. What is your take on this?
My answer is a bit in contrast to what Neha said. Because I'm going through that phase, and just before that, what Divya mentioned about the onboarding, that is the end user part of it, and my experience is predominantly within the internal IT organization and from the security perspective, and that is what I'm coming from, rather than the end user usability. In my experience, the onboarding is a bit clunky right now. It requires a lot of integration to make sure that your government badges are accepted as a part of the overall onboarding process, and which is something that I have like a personal notice. But this is a one-time activity. When you want to onboard a person with the biometrics data, it needs to probably be integrated with your badges. Then you need to make sure that you're following the relevant localized government rules and norms and all. For instance, in India, it needs to be integrated with Aadhaar card and others, so that you can have the ability to accept it. But that one time, once it's integrated, then it becomes a second part of storing that things, and then usability part of it. And like what Divya also mentioned, like Neha also mentioned, it's about the deep fakes and making sure that every time it is used, there are those liveliness check that somebody is actually alive. It's not an AI. It's not somebody else, a photograph. So all those things needs to be built in and developed to make sure once the things are onboarded, it can be reused seamlessly without it. But the first time onboarding is a bit clunky at this stage, and we can always go about making it better as the time passes on.
And there will be a time period to get the password expired or the key expired, and then renewal of that particular key, and have that embedded in the system itself so that it automatically picks it up.
Correct, and that is going to be seamlessly behind the behind the scene, like the FIDO. If people know about the FIDO, is the Fast Identity Online Framework, which defines that it is a proximity. Once you have your mobile and your personal mobile, which is integrated or configured to be the device, you can go in front of the computer and it will just gauge, are you within the proximity, and it will automatically log in and make sure this happens. Look, if people have used Netflix, it does use a similar kind of a mechanism, isn't it? It doesn't allow you to log onto two different devices if you're not in the same within the same proximity. If it's based on the plan that you have got, a similar nature, given the proximity standards, the location, all it gauges various different things, your biometrics, your location, your proximity, and basis that it allows you to log in seamlessly.
So Netflix is a very unique example, but my experience with Netflix is different. I use the same account in two different devices, so it works on the same Wi-Fi at my home. So it has not given me any challenges, but yeah, probably that is a glitch which is there. No, with technology, because there are a lot of solutions which we are implementing and you guys are implementing as well, and there are new solutions which are coming. How do you ensure that the solution which you are implementing or is been proposed to be implemented in the organization supports all authentication for the user group devices and software platform? Because at times, they expire, then they need to be updated from time to time. Maybe I ask you this question first.
Okay, as Jeevan mentioned about FIDO 2, I think it is very seamless also. I think all the major browsers like Chrome and Firefox, Safari, everybody supports, and major laptops, smartphones, they are also coming up with biometric authentication, maybe the face recognition or the thumb recognition. So majority of the softwares, they are supporting, the latest technologies are supporting, and it has been integrated with the existing tools. But as I earlier mentioned, we need to still explore the possibility where somebody is not in a position to give their biometric or a face recognition due to the special abilities which they are having, maybe a person on a wheelchair or a blindness or some kind of this disability. So we have to work on those. Other than that, for generic cases, of course, it is very seamless. The FIDO 2, whatever framework was he mentioned, it's based on the public key cryptography, and it is very seamless across most of the technologies and devices. So the major players are anyway supporting seamless integration. So that way there is no challenge. My only challenge is about the inclusivity, about the people, whether it can accept all kind of users, and how does it really identify identical twins with respect to face recognition or something like that. Very small use cases are there, strange use cases needs to be addressed. Apart from that, majority it is seamless.
And I'm sure as a bank, as a public sector bank, and definitely we face this challenge as well as, and Jeev, you might have faced this challenge as well. You may be having legacy system in the environment, and how do you ensure that those are getting covered with this as well?
No, very, very good question, and that is one of the challenges that I missed to call out. But legacy system, you need to redo the entire or re-architect the entire application, and there is no easy way out of it. So to answer your question, though, from the other side of things, for general users, your remote access users, it's pretty seamless. You don't have any issues and challenges. But like those edge cases, like your legacy applications, those Swift networks and others, where it requires a lot of investment and time, and see how can you probably build some bespoke wrapper around it to get people to authenticate. So that requires a lot of time and investment others. Then what Neha mentioned, so the first category, general users, remote access, get into the network, the things is pretty easier. It is pretty seamless. The bespoke applications requires a lot of work. Then the other part comes to that, the device types that you mentioned. So people have their personal devices, and obviously nowadays having a latest mobile is like pretty easy. So getting people's mobile and your corporate machines to speak to each other is again not very difficult ask. But at the same time, what we need to strike a balance is between the user experience and maintaining the security posture for the bank. And that is where we need to probably make sure that things are there. Example, the issue that we were just speaking before the call is that I can get my mobile to come and speak to my corporate device, and it will log in. But it authenticates me on my biometrics, and then I can get in login. But my wife, if she knows my password, she can go and add herself as another biometrics, and then she's able to, every time she walks to the machine and she unlocks my machine, it will like automatically unlock my office laptop. And that is where we need to probably do a bit more of research and work and make sure that we are locking in for that one specific set of biometric rather than opening it up also. So those are the kind of small little maturity glitches that we have identified, and we are working through it. But for majority of the users, it does work, along with another factor that we need to definitely add into the case.
Okay. Now let's not talk about the end user. When I say end user, it is about the customer. Let's talk about end user. I may represent end user as the company employees as well. Now, if we talk about it today, we are in a scenario where most of the organization have started adopting BYOD. Not everybody is given a device in the organization, and if you have to get them authenticated, you need to ensure that they have the relevant version of operating system running on their particular devices and all. And one of the challenge which I have faced, at least in the previous organization and current as well, that people are very reluctant. We are not reimbursing their cost, and people are using some of the old devices as well, which they don't want to change because this is something which they don't require. But organization want them to upgrade those devices as well. How do you manage such situations?
In my organization, we encourage people to bring their own devices, but not for corporate purposes. So it's like pretty vanilla. Like what we do is that we provide them with corporate laptops and devices, and even if we employ our third-party organizations, they get a very isolated build using where they can only do a set of activities rather than the holistic part. And even if you look, if I'm opening up my network to not the latest version of the operating system, then there will be vulnerabilities that can potentially be hacked into, and will give leeway to enter into my network, isn't it? So which we don't definitely encourage. So even if somebody is allowed to log in from their home using their own personal device, it's a very isolated network that we open up where they can only do a set of activities to make sure that they don't do anything beyond that. And it is using the Citrix network to make sure everything is locked in with key and everything. But that is where the issues happen, because I can't really enforce people to go and buy the latest laptop and others, can I? So which is where if there are organizations, they are encouraging people to use their own personal devices. In that case, then there needs to be a standard build that needs to be encouraged, and that needs to be well documented as a policy and a framework to enforce that people are following that. And then company needs to make sure that the relevant cost or the costs are incurred by the organization to do those upgrades, rather than letting it lean on the end users or the team to bear the burden of that things. That's my
Okay. Neha, I'll come back to you as a consultant to take a view on how the organization should be managing it. But before that, I would like to ask the similar question to Divya. As a public sector bank, there may be some few people in the organization who will be using the BYOD devices as well. How you are managing such situation?
public sector banks generally don't allow BYOD, means we don't even have laptops. We have intranet with the desktop communication. So where the user, we don't have any work from home. Even during the COVID, we are supposed to come and work from office only. So there is nothing like that for any public sector as a matter for that. So as of now, there is no issue. But when we spoke about the legacy system, from a security point of view, I would like to add a thing that we just have to maintain just enough security. See, I have probably HRMS portal or a e-learning portal for employees, and I have internet banking. Both are portals. Assume that my HRMS and e-learning is a legacy system. I need not bother about making it passwordless authentication or OTP-less authentication, because even if somebody takes my username and password and breach my LMS, like if somebody gets my username and password of my LMS, what are they going to do? Nothing is going to happen. Like financially or reputation-wise, nothing is going to happen. So if it is running well in legacy, let me allow it to function in legacy. But when it comes to critical applications like internet banking, I cannot take that kind of, I cannot be so negligent with that. I have to have very big level of encryption when how the password is moving and whether it is encrypted, whether any decryption method is possible, what kind of cryptography is being used, and what kind of authentication is used. Obviously, that will not stay in legacy. So that way, it should not be challenging. So with respect to this public sector kind of a thing, I would say we have not allowed any device. Of course, MDM is there. So wherever we have provided official mobile phones and tabs, there MDM is currently looking after the entire control is there. So remote wiping option is there, geolocation tracking is there, and we are allowing VPN for certain users just for auditing purpose. Then we are not giving them write access, just a read-only access, just to see the data, business data and the figures. So we have not given any access as that matters. So none of the public sectors allow that.
Okay, with no BYOD devices, at least I can say that you are having a peaceful...
Very peaceful.
That's one piece you are having.
Yes.
And in idle world. Neha, coming to you, what is your recommendation in managing such situations?
So as an industry body, I feel it's a combination, it should be a combination of multiple things. MFA first, then placing biometrics authentication. On top of that, a zero knowledge biometric authentication. So actually, data localization is a problem currently. So whatever OTP comes is on a mobile phone or a device, right? So it is susceptible to account takeover, fraud attacks, and SIM swapping, etc. So zero knowledge biometric authentication will help in a way, cloud will be performing the data analysis, and the cloud will also not know where the data initially resides while matching the data. So as an industry body, I feel it should be a combination of multiple things together.
Okay. Well said. Now to move beyond OTP and password-less authentication, Chief, what are your thoughts on the same, keeping in mind the threat implementation, technology, user adoptability, and business consideration?
Okay. Now, in this case, you need to have a well-planned strategy. Okay. When you're thinking about going OTP and passwordless authentication, it needs to be a wide discussion within your security team to make sure that you have a strategy in place. First thing first, look at the FIDO and the NIST standards. Make sure that becomes a part of your overall standard and policy framework. That is the first thing we do, like to make sure that it's enforcing the technology team, especially coming from a bigger organization where security is a horizontal. We have to make sure that that gets done. The second part is that you do your vendor evaluation. Make sure you evaluate all the different vendors that are in the market. As I said earlier, I know that your organization needs, your integrations are understood, so you zero down on a particular vendor. Make sure you have an open standard, which offer interoperability, otherwise you'll have that vendor lock-in. That is the second part. Having the standards, the policies, and second is identifying the right vendor. The third one is making sure that you're right, you do like what we did, a planned pilot phase rollout where you're learning continuously from it and making the changes so that you refine your solution overall. At the same time, you don't do a big bang before you go bang. And after that, you do a phased rollout. You don't do a rollout to all the users, but you select a set of users, you do the things. That is the third part. The fourth part is the user education piece, that you need to make sure you have the proper training manuals, learning. And the fourth part, which goes in tangent along with, is that you have this proper security measures. You have the proper data encryption, strong encryption, to make sure you're storing the right biometrics data in the things, and making sure there are like appropriate MFA levels which are applied, where there are no like single factor authentications and all. That is the fourth part of things. And after that, you need to make sure that you have the continuous monitoring of the things, to making sure that your solution, the authentication solution, is working effectively. And the last part you can't do without is solicit the user experience and make sure you take the feedback iteratively as you refine. And the bottom part is the adoption. You give people the time to adopt and implement it, can't be done. So those are the steps if you do, and meeting those challenges will make sure that your solution is very seamless, providing the right user experience, meeting the right security posture, meeting the right technology requirements. And that is how I would do it, and that is how we have attacked it. And that's my learning over the last couple of months, that we are trying to get to that OTP. And,
Well said, well said. So you have to take a phase-wise approach of first evaluating multiple vendors, then doing a POC, then doing implementing it within a specific group, taking feedback from them, learning from them, implementing the changes, then the user feedback, and then keep on enhancing and implementing it as you move forward with the approach. Divya, would you like to add any other points?
Jeevan has covered everything in a very beautiful manner. So that's how we normally roll out most of the mobile applications. So we'll first sit and test it with the IT staff. So we'll get some feedback. Then we'll roll out to the employees. Then only it will go to the customers. So this kind of phase by phase only we have to move with the pilot. Apart from that, just especially we are dealing with all the PII of the customer data. With respect to mine, it is most regulatory compliances. We have to, means whatever we are implementing, we should not be breaching RBI guidelines or the DPDP Act or any kind of statutory or guidelines, whatever we are having, and the cybersecurity framework and the international standards. So we have to be very careful with those things. As apart from that, everything else, that is the only concern. We have to really take care, the compliance part. Apart from that, everything else is beautifully covered by Jeevan.
Okay, I would like to add on top of it an additional question. So as a banking sector, we look at it, Didi, that it is password and the OTP. Where we are stuck as of now. Yeah. What do you see that as? What do you see as a future of banking when we talk about no OTP, no password? How does it going to be working in future? And do you see that it is do you foresee that it coming, or you still see that it will take some time to get adopted?
As of now, most of the mobile banking applications, or including your other UPI applications, at least to unlock the initial thing, Face ID, biometric recognition, and if it depends on the smartphone which you're using. If you're giving permission to use your Face ID and biometrics, so that is used initially. Apart from that, we used to have security questions, CAPTCHA, and we used to select one phrase. If you remember your internet banking application, one phrase and one image also you have to select. So till now, that is trending, the entry password, and for doing a transaction, another transaction password, everything is in place. But still, we are yet to explore the like OTP-less authentication with respect to mobile banking. But with respect to internal applications, which the employees are using, the critical applications, most of them are MFA-based only. So as of now, with the customer's angle, we are yet to explore, means any bank, it's yet to explore the OTP-less authentication.
It again depends on bank to bank as well. Like you talk about images, certain bank uses that, certain bank doesn't even use anything. Yes, and yes. I still remember when I got my first check 22, 23 years back, and I am still using that bank account, and I'm still using the password which was set at that point in time. I was not even forced to reset the password. I don't want to name the bank, because otherwise they will force me to change the password. password.
Yeah, just to add, the security questions which we have set, even that is a very big loophole, because the city where I was born is available on my social media. My childhood, probably my favorite hero, somewhere I would have posted on Insta or FB that I love this hero, I watched this movie, so they can try. And if they want to search some other security questions like mother's maiden name or many things, the first school which I attended. So most of the security questions are available anyway on social media. So even that is also, it's a recovery security question. It comes only when you have to recover your password or, re-authenticate yourself. Even that is going to be a big failure. So we need to really move on to something which is passwordless and OTP-less. But again, the challenge is the internet penetration in the rural community, and where places smartphones and internet is not available. Even today we are using that *#121, something you dial with your button phone, right? So just to check your balance, missed call enquiry. So even today we have that facility, because there are people who are still using that and don't have access to smartphone. So only with respect to a few percentage we do have challenges. Other than that, we are good to go.
Oh, that's very well summed up. Neha, question to you. What is your recommendation to the organization adopting OTP and passwordless authentication?
Yeah, NPCI started working on this passwordless authentication and biometrics authentication, and most of the banks are already using biometrics for mobile banking purposes, but it is on how much aware a user is. So critical would be user awareness when either passwords, OTP or your biometrics are taken into consideration. So awareness is always at the top when cybersecurity comes into,
Yeah, one of the critical aspects which Divya touched upon, even I was not aware of it, that I can lock my biometric using the Aadhaar UIDI portal, and that was a good literacy piece I am picking up from today's session, that it can be locked, because you go anywhere, sometimes banks ask you to do that, even you apply for a loan, they just ask you to do about biometric authentication and it's done, and it gets dispersed to a certain amount. So these kind of user convenience has been provided by the bank, but the user is not aware of it, how to use it, when to use it, and what are the limitations in and around it. Now, concluding the session, then I'll open it for Q&A. I take a good takeaway from Jeev that there has to be a phase-wise approach which needs to be taken. You mentioned about it, that there has to be, there are certain things which needs to be looked at before the solution is adopted. You mentioned about CAPTCHA, the questions which are there, Divya. So these are critical pieces which I'm picking up from today's session and would look forward to implementing it. I open this for our listeners Q&A. In case you have a question, please feel free to ask the panelist. Yeah, please. Can he has a mic, please?
Sure.
Biometric authentication part. So on a monthly basis, if I need to get the supplies from the corporation, I will have to lock, unlock. So this goes on and on. But how are we going to get this implemented with various states? So that will be a challenge for most of the people who are in the rural area and also in the urban area. So how are we going to resolve these kind of issues?
So I think the government has to come up with certain policies where they can do away with biometric, and through any other ID card system or some other system where other states are still using the ration card and the other ID proof, through that they are going to get. Or there is a DBT, the direct benefit transfer, where Karnataka government also is giving every month Bhagya Lakshmi scheme. They are giving some 2,000 to the housewife or the homemaker, and by showing showing the Aadhaar card, they can travel free in the local buses, government buses. Nowhere we are giving the biometric, but we are showing the ID proof. So maybe if your government can accept just the producing the ID proof is sufficient, or DigiLocker document or something is sufficient, then no need to give biometric data. So that is something which the government has to take a decision. Otherwise, locking, unlocking is not a very tedious process. Even credit cards also, you have transaction limit set, right? You can always keep your international usage limit disabled. Whenever you're traveling abroad, you can just enable, and that too for 5,000, 10,000, different POS limit, different e-commerce limit, different ATM withdrawal limit, everything you can keep limit, so that because internationally when you're using credit card for e-commerce, it is not even asking for your CVV or just PIN number. Without PIN number also you're able to do e-commerce transaction on your international credit card transactions. So every time it is a good practice to lock and unlock. So if your state government can do away with biometric authentication, that's well and good. Otherwise, it's always, though it is tedious, better to lock unlock whenever it is required.
Sure. As you said, because I had foreseen an issue with the POS, because in rural areas, the smaller banks, there comes a problem, and there are a lot of fraudsters which happened in the rural areas of Tamil Nadu. So that's the reason.
Everywhere it happened. That's why UIDAI came up with locking the biometric option. And that also, the maximum limit per day you can withdraw in AAPS system was 4,000. I am not sure if other banks have enhanced it or something, because that is not a very secure, and it's a direct cash-to-cash transaction. It's not more than 4,000 you cannot withdraw in a per day transaction for that.
Sure, because the ration card is in turn authenticated or mapped to Aadhaar. And again, the biometrics are even authenticating from the other database. That's the issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Ma'am, do we have time, or the time is up?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So
thank you.
Deepa has said that we have to conclude the session. We will be around. In case you have a question, feel free to ask. We will be more than happy to answer it. The panelists are going to be here only. Deepa, over to you.
Such an insightful session, and I know the enthusiastic faces in the room wants to ask questions, but we have another session planned on. So I thank you all for having us a very insightful discussion, and I also got some knowledge that how OTP-less authentication is the way, and I see, and when I think logically, I think DigiYatra is one of such OTP-less authentication, where I'm authenticating myself at the airport that yes, I am the person traveling on this ticket. So I think OTP-less is the regime we have to see in near future, but yeah, digital divide and the lack of digital literacy is also something that we have to be mindful of. So let's see how, as industry association and collaborating through these conferences, we are sharing our learnings and going ahead with the future of digitization with OTP-less authentication. Panelists, please ensure that we collect your goodies from the stage, because we have kept something as a token of appreciation and gratitude, and we hope that you really enjoy it. Thanks a lot. Thanks, kind audience, for listening peacefully. Thank you a lot. Can we have a panel photograph, please? Photographer.